Ladies and gentlemen, it's just an honor to have on the Denise Geary Show Claire Lopez, former CIA operations officer, now working as the Vice President for Research and Analysis at the Center for Security Policy. Claire Lopez, thank you for taking the time to come on the Denise Geary Show today.
Oh, hi, Denise, and thank you very much for having me.
You're so welcome. I want to start off just briefly. We weren't going to talk about this. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to get into Islamophobia and the struggle for Christians to survive the genocide in the Middle East, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But Claire, because of what happened over the weekend and the news that the President of the United States was hoping to engage the Taliban together with the government in Afghanistan, in Kabul, Afghanistan, talk to the leaders of the Afghan government and this terrorist organization that we've been fighting now for years and years, since 9/11. And then having made the decision, President Trump having then made the decision to cancel the meeting in light of another American soldier being targeted for death by the Taliban. And I understand that you worked on a paper that you co-authored. It's a paper called the Secure Freedom Strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the Secure Freedom Strategy, a plan for victory over the global jihad movement. I know when the president tweeted out that the meeting was canceled, my immediate response was on Twitter to suggest to the president that the rules of engagement be set aside, the gloves removed, and literally they go after the Taliban and just wipe them out. That was just a gut reaction. It wasn't a well thought out strategy. So I'm asking you, the former CIA officer, apart from setting aside the rules of engagement and just wiping them bloody off the face of the earth, what would you say to this, Claire Lopez?
Well, I would have to say first, I was totally shocked to find out that this meeting was even scheduled to be held
I was
on
too.
U.S. soil,
Yes,
at Camp David, which is in Maryland, north of D.C.,
right.
about 3 days before the annual remembrance of 9/11. That just blew me away. Although I think, as we probably know, many of us know that talks between the U.S. government envoys, led by Zalmay Khalilzad, have been going on in Doha, Qatar, with the Taliban for quite a long time, many months.
Well, Obama, let's
think
back.
of bringing them here to the U.S. on U.S. soil 3 days before 9/11. I have to say that just blew me away.
Well, I want to point out to the audience that Barack Hussein Obama initiated negotiations between the Taliban and the United States government years and years ago. And, at that point, many of us thought, why in the world would he negotiate with him? I understand that this president is wanting to keep a campaign promises. His campaign promise to the American people to take people out of Afghanistan. And I appreciate the president wanting to fulfill that promise. I also appreciate the fact that the American people are war weary and they don't want to have Americans dying in Afghanistan. However, from my perspective, the war against Islamic terrorism is going to need to continue in the years and decades going forward if we're going to try to maintain safety and protection of American interests overseas as well as here at home. So I don't see the wars against Islamic terrorism ending anytime soon. And it's almost like I feel like saying to the American people, buck up and get used to it. But I'm here to hear what you have to say, Claire. What's your thought?
Sure. So 3 points that come to my mind as I'm listening to you. One, we are not fighting terrorism. We fight to live free of Islamic law, because Islamic law, or Sharia, is what the enemy fights to impose upon us. Everything the Islamic movement enemy does does, whether violent, nonviolent, or someplace in between, is aimed at getting Islamic law imposed and enforced on the rest of the world. If that is what they fight for, we fight to live free of Islamic law. We fight to defend our Constitution and the laws derived from it, according to Article 6 of our Constitution. Number two, what I would say is that this goes way back, as you say, but way before President Obama.
Sure.
It was in the year 2004.
Mm-hmm.
In the year 2004 is when the United States Department of State, under then-President George W. Bush, helped to write the new Afghan Constitution and got it imposed upon the country while we were still there in large numbers of troops. In a presence in the country, across the country. That Constitution of 2004, written by our State Department, United States of America State Department, put Afghanistan under Islamic law. All you have to do is read Articles 1, 2, and 3, which say together, essentially, that there will be no law in Afghanistan that does not subordinate itself to Sharia. That's number two.
Thank you so much, Claire. I recall reading about that, and I missed that. I should have mentioned that, but thank you. That is very true, and that did not, and it shows the naivete of the Bush administration as well. But I also think that to win it, Bush didn't go in there to win it because the rules of engagement and fighting that war were too strict. But anyway, go ahead, Claire. I'm sorry. Point number three.
Let me make one more point. The third one I was going to say is, who are the Taliban, right? We all know what the word means, right?
Right.
The word Talib is singular for student.
Yes,
right?
right,
Student.
right.
And Taliban is plural, students, plural. They came out of the madrasas of southern Afghanistan, northern Pakistan, in the 1990s, after the end of the original Afghan war to kick out the Soviet Red Army. They came out in militias to oppose the savage civil war that was being waged by the various warlords of Afghanistan. The Taliban fought the other warlords of the country to bring order to the country. They captured Kabul in 1996, and that was the run-up, that was the lead-up from that point forwards to 9/11, which, of course, they were in collaboration with Al-Qaeda. Bin Laden had come back to Afghanistan at that point, and, of course, with Iran and Hezbollah together. So, but who are the Taliban? The Taliban are the husbands, sons, fathers, brothers, and cousins of the Afghan people.
Exactly.
Why on earth do we think that the Afghan people are going to choose infidel invaders and our way of life, which they think enormously sinful, over Islamic law and their own family?
Can I answer that?
In a million years, they're not.
Well, can I answer that question? So, for the sake of the audience, being an educator, there was an Afghan. Well, I've had several Afghan individuals that I've met over the years. I remember talking and meeting an individual during grad school. But this particular student I had a few years ago, I helped rescue his wife and children out of Kabul. But at any rate, the point I wanted to make is he was working. His first name is Zalmay. He was working for the United States government, for the State Department, U.S. State Department. He was a farmer that got involved, and a fairly wealthy farmer at that, but learning about democracy and freedom of speech and freedom of the press really was a part of that. In fact, all of his brothers were embedded with U.S. forces. One was a doctor that worked at one of the U.S. base hospitals. But to get to my point, he really supported democracy. He supported equality for women. His father and his uncle were literally dragged out of their homes and murdered because they wanted their daughters, i.e. Zalmay's sisters, to be able to go to school and get an education. So, he was invested. And, believe it or not, there are some people in Afghanistan, and I've talked to a few of them over the years, that really look at America. And of course, these were more educated people. Zalmay, who I'm talking about, went to a university in Afghanistan, specialized in agriculture and husbandry, and had a different vision for Afghanistan.
Right. So what you're talking about is a small, tiny elite,
a minority,
exposed to Western ideas,
right,
and who are not devout or faithful Muslims.
You're right.
That's not the majority of the Afghan people.
You're absolutely right.
Unfortunately, I wish it could be otherwise.
Yeah,
but it's not.
He's more secular. His family was more secular and a more educated element within Afghanistan. You're absolutely right about it. But I just want people not to think that you and I are painting everyone with the same brush, because there is that small group, I would say an elite minority, better educated, have a little bit more money, doing better, that, even years ago wanted to see a free and independent Afghanistan, free from the rule of the Taliban. Still would like to see the country. I believe the government of Kabul there would like to be free of the Taliban. But you and I have both heard of all of the defections from the government to the Taliban now, because they're so worried we're going to walk away. Do you believe ultimately we will walk away, Claire?
Yes, we need to. Afghanistan is not something that we need to spend one more drop of American blood or treasure for. If the place once again becomes a safe haven, it is.
It is already.
It worse as a safe haven,
right,
for jihadis. Al-Qaeda is there.
ISIS
Islamic State is there.
Right, exactly.
Hezbollah is there,
right,
training the Taliban. Hezbollah has been training the Taliban since well before 9/11. Iran is there.
Right.
And a whole host of different clans and jihadist militias. So it already is what it is.
Why don't you?
It is not up to us. We're not going to be able to change it. If we put in 800,000 troops and kept them there for the next 50 years, we might not be able to change it. But what we do need to do, I think, is to keep enough intelligence capability and also special operations forces capability in and or nearby to be aware, to be alerted, if ever another plot is developed inside of that territory that would threaten any of us or our allies, so that we can respond to that. I think that is the extent of what we need to do for Afghanistan.
So, Claire, basically, I think that you're making the pitch for the Israeli model. They've been attacking Hezbollah targets. We saw, what was it, a week ago, after Hezbollah brought in, through the efforts of Iran, brought in these precision guided mechanisms that they could then place on their missiles, on their rockets, so that their rockets were no longer dumb rockets, but they brought in these crates of these mechanized mechanisms and high-grade propellant to basically turn these bombs into, a strategically precision-guided missile to attack Israel. I'm thinking that this is what Israel does. It doesn't have any armies in Syria or Iraq or any of the other places that it has to strike on occasion in order to preempt a massive buildup of smart bombs that can then be used to attack cities and population centers inside Israel. So that's basically what you're saying. Keep an eye on it to make sure that nothing's getting too large or too mammoth of a project for us to be able to deal with precision guided attacks.
Exactly. But let's remember, 9/11 did not come out of the Hindu Kush. 9/11 came out of Riyadh and Tehran.
Right.
And Beirut.
Right.
So, yes, to all of what you just said, as far as maintaining a watchful eye on what these jihadis are doing, I foresee what is going to happen with a pullout. Now, if we leave a certain number of troops there, This might be delayed, it might be forestalled somewhat, but that the warlords will go back to civil war against one another. Pakistan, of course, will support the Taliban.
Right.
Hezbollah, Iran will support the Taliban. They probably will be the most powerful force there and emerge victorious again. I expect the Taliban will conquer Kabul and will rule Afghanistan in the main in the near future.
Yeah, it breaks.
All again depending on how long we leave some troops there and what numbers of troops might remain there. But there's nothing we can do to forestall the reemergence of the Taliban, but we can forestall the emergence of any more plots to attack America or our allies. But keep in mind, again, as I said, 9/11 did not come out of the Hindu Kush. It came out of Riyadh, Tehran, and Beirut.
I so appreciate your points. I guess because my heart really goes out to the women and children especially, and the molestation of children. That's just, the Afghan men playing with little boys and just that whole, corrupt, sick sort of culture that exists among elements within Afghanistan.
Well, I mean, it's doctrinal and it's canonical and doctrinal in its roots because of the degradation of the status of women.
Right.
And so, because women are not valued
at
as
all,
anything
really,
other than producers of babies, men have come to despise them, which
right,
is totally abnormal and out
right,
of,
right,
just completely abnormal, humanly speaking.
Right.
But they turn to boys, the bachabazi, that is the dancing boys, or the
right,
what would you say, the play boys.
Right.
Especially in the Pashtun.
Yes.
Culture, not all of the different
right, not all.
in Afghanistan.
Right.
But certainly the Pashtun one.
Right, absolutely. And it just breaks my heart, and it breaks my heart, the treatment of women and children. And I guess that's why my knee-jerk reaction to Democrats criticizing the president was, can't we just go in there and win it? I mean, we won World War II. Can't we just for once?
No, we cannot. No,
okay.
We physically cannot. This is what we have to understand.
You don't think we can wipe them out?
The Taliban, fathers, husbands, sons, brothers, and cousins of the Afghan people. Who are you going to wipe out?
Well,
the entire population?
No, you're not. No, of course not. Because I think if the U.S. were going to do that, we would see people rise up and join the Kabul government because they don't want the Taliban in power. And I do believe there's that sector of society.
A few don't.
Right.
But an
okay.
awful lot do.
Yes,
Now there are other tribal and clan configurations. The Tajiks, the Hazaras, the Uzbeks, who are the warlords, who will fight hard, and that's where the civil war part comes in. They're already gearing up. They're already arming and making ready for what they know to come will be a civil war. Uzbeks, Tajiks, and Hazaras in particular, and they will fight against the Taliban. But the same thing has happened last time because of the Pakistani and the Pakistani intelligence service, the ISI support for the Taliban,
right.
The ability for the Taliban to find cross-border safe haven inside Pakistani territory.
Right.
It's likely that the Taliban will emerge victorious again.
It's such a bloody mess, and it's just so deeply sad to me to think that that's what the people there have to face, especially the innocent people that are non-political and couldn't care less about Islam. They just want to be able to survive. And I guess I've met enough of those folks over the years that, it's just very sad to me. Let's pick up. We've just got a little bit of time left, and I know you've got an appointment. So real quick, I wanted you to address the issue of Islamophobia. I'm always reading reports, Claire, coming out of the Middle East. And, Gatestone Institute, Raymond Ibrahim's website, a lot of these individuals or think tanks write about it. I was reading one report talking about how NASA satellites observe the Amazon fires, but we don't have any satellites moving around the earth that are talking to us about, giving us communications, back to the American government and to our allies about Christians that are being burned alive and crucified, murdered incessantly. I was reading a report, that article that I had asked you to talk about today. ISIS, the Islamic State, was defeated in Mosul, Iraq. Mosul is what? The third largest city in Iraq, I think? And huge.
I think that's right, yes.
A huge city. And there used to be over 15,000 Christians there in just that one city, the third largest city there in Iraq, I believe. And I think today there's 40. Think about that. We had 15,000 souls, men, women, children, grandparents, cousins, aunts, and uncles, 15,000 souls, Christian people, and there's 40 left. You look at the Middle East, you look at a map of these Muslim-dominant countries. Egypt used to be a Christian majority country. Lebanon used to be a majority Christian country. These are places where Christianity once prospered and was the heart and soul of the people. And then Islam came along in the 7th century, and slowly but surely, but the Christians have begun to dissipate and move on. After ISIS, of course, that was the final nail was placed in the coffin. I look at these authors talking about how even the Vatican Church, the Pope will talk about, again, the fires in the Amazon rainforest, and talking about there's life-threatening issues going on with regards to the environment, but never a word does he talk about these Christians. I want to share this story. Hang on for just another minute, Claire. I was reading this story about these 3 men and a woman who robbed and beat and poisoned a 35-year-old Christian who was an auto rickshaw driver. Now, Pakistan, for those of you who don't know, ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan is a country where if you're a Christian, it's extremely difficult to get any kind of a job other than manual labor. And Christians are persecuted in horrible ways. And in this one particular case, it says here, a report out of Pakistan, that this 35-year-old had an extremely good work ethic. His personality drew a lot of customers to him. He was well-mannered, he was polite, he was friendly. Just a kind-hearted Christian man who worked really hard. His parents had died many years ago. He was taking care of his 3 younger siblings. And these Muslims these 3 Muslim men and a woman got it in their head that they wanted to kill this man, but they didn't do it just by, shooting him in the head or stabbing him to death and so that he would die instantly. What they did was they said that they were going to hire him, even pay him extra money if they would, take him to this distant place. They got him to this sort of remote area, and they demanded that he give him all of his earnings for the day. This Christian man gave him all the money he had, and he begged him to spare his life. What they did was they forced him to drink poison and acid, which they often do, ladies and gentlemen. They throw acid in the face of girls and boys and men and women that are Christian, that, deforms them and causes horrible deformities for life. And they made him drink this poison and acid and left him on the street to die. He was on the street unconscious. He vomited blood, Claire, for almost a week, and then he died. Now, that level of brutality, that level of evil, is not from a Muslim terrorist group, Claire. That was 3 men and a woman. Those are Muslims living in Pakistan, and this is the kind of treatment the Christians get in Pakistan. Again, not from a terrorist group, from Muslims. We see this to Christians in Egypt, in Jordan, in Iraq, in Syria, in Yemen. We see it all over Muslim-dominant countries. Your thoughts, Claire? What are we going to do?
Well, certainly what you're describing is a phenomenon that is nearly 1,400 years old.
Right.
We're horrified because with modern technology of communication, the internet and so forth, we hear about all of this. We hear about more of it. But I'll tell you, if your listeners want to know more about the history of this, they should take a look at Andy Bostom's book called The Legacy of Jihad, came out in 2007. More recently, last year, look at Robert Spencer's History of Jihad, and then definitely have a look at Ray Ibrahim's, you mentioned his name there, Denice, Raymond Ibrahim's new book from earlier this year called
the Sword and the Scimitar.
Sword and the Scimitar.
Right, yes.
And these books, all three of them, document in incredible detail the non-stop offensive jihad. Jihad is warfare against non-Muslims to spread the religion. That is the legal definition of jihad in the books of Islamic law.
Is the
non-stop jihad against all non-Muslims in the world going on literally for nearly 1,400 years. And, you know, the Middle East is certainly a place where Christianity is doomed. It cannot survive. Other places, though, include West Africa, where in places like Nigeria,
right,
also Mali, and other places there,
Kenya,
whatever Christians are left are
Kenya,
coming under
Sudan,
a horrific assault, assault and murder, genocide. It's genocide.
It's genocide.
And you know, they too will be totally Muslim after some time, because the Christians will either be murdered or forced into exile.
Right. Does the CIA, or do you know of any particular branch of the government that really ever works on this issue at all? I know the Trump administration has really highlighted it, and it's my understanding that
not really.
Not really. Okay.
No, there is really nobody within
the Western world
of the federal government that understands or focuses on or studies Islam, jihad, Sharia. This all happened over a period of many years, really, going back at least to the 1960s, certainly during the 90s, the Bill Clinton administration, and on through the George W. Bush administration and forward, when the Muslim Brotherhood obtained such a foothold in this country. And by the way, you mentioned the term Islamophobia before. That is a Muslim Brotherhood term.
Yes.
They made up that word.
Yes.
In order to demonize and attack and demean those who rightfully would call out the depredations of 14 centuries of Islamic jihad. So, you know, have a look at the books. Raymond Ibrahim, Robert Spencer, Andrew Bostom.
Thank you.
And then, as you said, more on a regular basis, articles
Raymond
here in Gatestone Institute. That's
right.
One.
Yes. Raymond Ibrahim puts out something.
Robert Spencer's Jihad Watch itself.
Jihad Watch, ladies and gentlemen, by Robert Spencer. Check it out. You can go there today. Jihad Watch. And, of course, RaymondIbrahim.com. You can go to his website and check out his writings. He's forever writing about what's going on in terms of Christian persecution. There's also horrible Jewish persecution. However, the Jews have been smart, and for the most part, they've tried to get out of every Muslim-dominant country. They have just literally...
But let me jump in, if I might.
Okay, sure.
Excuse me, but
sure.
Here in the United States,
yes,
there is an alarming resurgence of Jew hatred, anti-Semitism.
Yes.
It is coming from both the left, inside the Democratic Party, for example, and from the forces of the Islamic Jihad led by the Muslim Brotherhood in this country.
Well, they're in our schools. They're
appalling.
Right.
In what is going on in the United States. Attacks on the streets against people, men, for example, wearing a kippah, who are, looking obviously Jewish, wearing Jewish clothing.
Right.
Synagogues are being defaced.
Right.
And cemeteries are also being defaced.
Right.
And attacked. Right here in the United States, it is happening here. It is not just in Europe where they've been overrun by Muslim immigrants. It is here in the United States. and inside the Democratic Party of the United States.
And ladies and gentlemen, the Californian Board of Education, they tried to pass, Claire, I don't know if you're aware of it, but curriculum in all of our high schools that was very anti-Semitic. And finally there was enough, I talked about it on my show, and there was enough uproar, thank God, by Jewish groups, because there was terrible anti-Semitism in the curriculum that was going to go out into every high school in the state of California. The anti-Semitism is playing out on university campuses because the universities are allowing these Muslim students to come on campus and whip people up into anti-Israel, anti-Jewish hatred. It's a phenomenon that's in every state, and it's pathetic, and it's just really unfortunate that the leadership in this country, I know that President Trump and his team and Secretary of State Pompeo has really come out and tried to, make statements. But, there's leadership in education as well, and other areas of leadership across the country, and the people need to really take a stand against anti-Semitism as well. Cool.
If you have any young people, especially students in your family, children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, whatever they may be, pay attention to what's going on in their schools. I mean, all the way down to the middle school and even lower level as well, especially as college campuses, where it's not just the hard left, the communist, the Marxist indoctrination going on our college campuses right now, but it is the Islamic movement led by the Muslim Brotherhood, especially Muslim Student Association, Students for Justice in Palestine, who are leading these apartheid week events, who are barring conservative speakers, and who are leading the BDS movement, boycott, divest, and sanction movement on campus. It's not just on campus, of course, throughout society, but on campus. Pay attention to what's going on with your kids, any who are in your family.
That's absolutely correct, and thank you for saying that, Claire. I'm constantly saying the same thing. It's really important that people know what's going on, because the hard left in educational institutions, K through 12, and on the community college and university levels, are really trying to do their best to change our culture from a Judeo-Christian culture to a hard left as well as Islamic one that embraces ideas that are certainly abhorrent, I think, to most Americans. Claire, thank you for coming on the broadcast this evening. You have a great evening there in Washington, D.C., and I'll look forward to next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to be on. Talk to you next time.
Thank you, Claire. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to go to a commercial break. Let's go to Frugatti's first, our award-winning Italian restaurant here in all of Kern County and probably throughout the state. Let's go to that commercial break.
I want to tell you about a place I love to go, Frugatti's Italian Restaurant. Very few locations here provide seating outside in front of a fabulous water fountain with an atmosphere that is reminiscent to me of eating outdoors in Venice. This is real Italian food by real Italians. And what makes it even more so is owner Ralph Frugoletti, who nearly a quarter century ago brought a wood fire oven from Milan, Italy to make, like his mother, fresh homemade bread and pizzas. Moreover, Frugatti's Restaurant offers you not only the very best in Southern Italian cooking, even importing the finest ingredients for authentic Italian food, including a fitness menu. After all, Ralph has represented the United States and Italy, competing in the Master Championship Games. He knows all the right food for good fitness, so check out the menu. After today's broadcast, run over to Frugatti's Italian Restaurant and Catering at 600 Coffee Road here in Bakersfield. And after a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday service, stop into Frugatti's for a great lunch. I'll see you there, and tell Mr. Ralph Frugoletti that Denice sent you. Salute. Bon appetito.
And ladies and gentlemen, let me also bring your attention to an organization, a company there in the beautiful Tehachapi Mountains in East Kern County, the hub of the aerospace industry here in California, Anatase Products. Anatase Products provides all the aircraft nuts and bolts that you could possibly need. They can handle top secret projects. You need to get in touch with Scott Baker, former Marine Corps officer, owner and operator of Anatase, Anatase. Anatase Products They're in East Kern County, 661 area code 822-6873. Whatever you need, whatever your major defense or aerospace company needs, get in touch with Scott Baker at Annotate's Products. Again, the number is 661-822-6873. They can handle anything that flies, anything that orbits the earth. They've got it. They can take care of whatever you need. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening to the Denice Gary Show. I want to remind all of you, I know we take our freedom, our religious freedom here for granted. We have no idea what it must be like to live in a Muslim country where your Muslim neighbor could get it in his head and in his heart that they hate your guts because you're a Christian or you're Jewish. As I said, most Jewish people left Muslim dominant countries. You know, they've been leaving them. They've been leaving them because of the horrible persecution. Christians have been a little bit slower, but there are Christians that are this poor man. I'm thinking about this rickshaw driver in Pakistan. Christians are already forced and kept in poverty and not allowed to really get ahead in life. And the fact that someone would beat him and pour acid and poison down his throat and leave him to die on the street a horribly painful death is just, and this is the kind of thing that's going on all over Muslim countries against Christians and any Jews that they can find. So please keep Jews and Christians in your thoughts and prayers. Talk about this in your churches and synagogues and really pray for these people, that somehow they escape those Muslim dominant countries and get to a country where there is religious freedom for Christians and Jews, and pray for Jews in this country that are really beginning to suffer tremendous persecution by the hard left and certainly by Islamic groups and Muslims in this country. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you for listening to the Denice Gary Show. We look forward to being back with you tomorrow. Have a great evening.